We will now call the special committee on taxing districts to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Second, please. Vice Chair Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Saunier.
Present.
Alderman Browning. Sarah Coffin.
Present.
Christine Ingracia.
Present.
Madeline Swanstorm.
Present.
Casey Milberg.
Present.
Will Smith.
Present.
Chair Aldridge.
Present.
Vice Chair Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Present.
Alderman Browning.
Present.
We have 9 present. We have a quorum.
All right, with that, we have established a quorum. Before we take approval of minutes, we do have a new member who is joining us today. If she can introduce herself and say what department from the city of St. Louis she's with.
Sure. My name is Casey Milberg. I'm representing the mayor's office where I serve policy.
Thank you, thank you. I would like to now take a motion of approval of minutes from Wednesday, October 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Saunier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Sarah Coffin.
Aye.
Christine Ingracia.
Aye.
Madeline Swanstorm.
Aye.
Will Smith.
Aye.
Chair Aldridge.
Aye.
Casey Milberg.
Aye.
Vice Chair Clark Hubbard. We have 10 aye votes.
Thank you. With that, we have approved the minutes from Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. We do not have any board bills for review. We also do not have any resolutions. And today, committee discussion will be hearing from various SIDs and SBDs throughout the region as this committee continue to embark on ways that we can make SIDs and SBDs more compliant. I think it's also, hopefully a board bill will come down the line from this committee, but I think it's important that we also hear from these individual SIDs and SBDs to learn a little bit more about their board makeup, how they retain records, and some of the pluses and maybe struggles that they deal with. We have a various groups from SIDs, from downtown to Cherokee to South Grand to Central West End to the Locust Special Taxing District, Locust Special Business District, as well as the St. Louis Hills Business District. So we're going to jump right into it to be respectful of everybody's time. So we have the first SID that we will hear from is the downtown SID, Ms. Kelly, who has a presentation, if she can come on up. And before everyone speak, so we can just do it all in one whop, if you are speaking today, can you all please raise your right hand? All right. Do you all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I think everyone said I do. Okay. All right, Ms. Kelly from the downtown SID, please proceed. Please make sure your mic is on. It should be green.
It was red.
There we go.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Alderman Aldridge, and to the committee. I appreciate the invitation. I have submitted a detailed deck that I won't go through all today, but I will highlight a lot of what the downtown SID does and how we provide resources and services to the community.
And to all committee members, especially the community members, you should have been added to a Google Drive that should have this this PowerPoint also in the drive. If you don't, let me know and we'll get it printed if you'd like a copy. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Aldridge, and to the committee, my name is Kelly McCrary. I have been the executive director for the downtown St. Louis SID for 4 years, and prior to that, I was the director of security and urban space for the downtown SID. The downtown SID has gone through a couple of renewals since I joined in 2017. We are now within a 20-year period of the SID being authorized to exist. However, in 2031, we need to return back to our stakeholders to ensure that we have done a positive job for them and request that they agree to the assessment funding of the SID for an additional 10 years after 2030. Again, I have a slide deck that I'm going to request we go through a couple of those slides just to highlight the services and resources for the downtown community. If we could go to the next slide. Is there someone? Oh, thank you. So while we wait for the slide, I want to highlight that the downtown district exists to help the downtown community be cleaner, safer, and better for all within our scope. As you can see on the screen here, our boundaries include the greater part of the business district, as well as parts of downtown West and Laclede's Landing. The SID is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were established in 2000 by property owners committed to improving the downtown area. And I want to stress that our collaboration is with the City of St. Louis to supplement those services that we provide, but not to overtake or replace those services. For the most part, every day we have various public safety assets, maintenance assets, and clean team assets on the ground. Our clean team has been a part of this organization for the longest period. You have pictures within the slide deck that show some of our longest serving team members. One is approaching 18 years with working with the SID. He has a great passion for the work he does, and our clean team is operational 7 days a week. The other factor that we provide which is critical to downtown St. Louis, is the Downtown Police Bike Unit. It is a specialized unit of officers that we implemented, I believe, in the early 2000s. The SID pays for their lease space right now. We pay for those officers' specialized bike training in urban bicycle utilization, I don't know the right term, but there's specialized training for that. We also pay for their uniforms, but they are not employees of the SID. They are commissioned police officers under SLMPD. We also provide secondary security, off-duty police officers to the downtown community. They are mostly deployed in mobile vehicles and on bikes. These officers are there to provide an additional presence, as well as support any nuisance calls, those lower level incidents and concerns that our stakeholders present to us that law enforcement may not have the, I'll say, capacity or time to address in a responsive manner. So we have a very good relationship with the 4th District Command staff, as well as the bike unit and the officers who patrol. We also deploy public safety ambassadors. We have 2 who have been with the district for approximately 10 years, and they know the downtown community, our residents, our other stakeholders very well, and it's important that they remain in hospitality and support role for our stakeholders. Another effort that we provide to downtown St. Louis is this January, we will be working with Behavioral Health Response to implement a program that is running parallel, if not alongside, BHR's efforts with the City of St. Louis to embed them with their clinicians, with our secondary officers, and that will be to address any crisis any members of the community who are in crisis, any members of the unhoused community, and drug interdiction. This is an effort, again, for the CID to support our stakeholders downtown, all of our stakeholders, every community that exists, in order to have support them with resources and build the housing first model for those in the unhoused community. If we could go to the next slide, I just want to highlight a couple of more of the services that the CID provides to downtown. If you've come through downtown in the summer and early fall and spring months, you will see across most of our intersections there are tons of flowers. This is one of the services we provide to downtown that we really appreciate in working with our landscaping team. It brings incredible beautification to every corner. This year, we've worked with them for about 4 years, our landscaping provider, and each year they amaze us with what they design and what they install downtown to change the landscape. It is one of, again, a highlight that many people recognize, and we look forward to maintaining that service going forward. Our clean team also works to remove lower level graffiti. We have a picture on there, which those gentlemen will go out every day, go to these areas where there are tags, where there are graffiti, posted bills, stickers, and just to try to help the area look more clean and inviting and receptive to all. And two other projects that we take care of are, we have a number of pet waste receptacles. Those bags are for our families of pets within the community, and we purchase those on a regular basis and supply that to our downtown stakeholders. An initiative that we began about 2 years ago was to pay closer attention to the highway exit ramps into downtown. We have 6 of them, and our maintenance team will go out twice a month and ensure that in support of MoDOT, that we are clearing those areas, and again, in trusting that we're trying to make this downtown community more welcoming and inviting. And then lastly, I'll speak about an initiative that we launched just this past September. You see in your slide deck, and you've heard a number of the services and resources that we provide to our downtown community. To date, we have not had a combined communication center where we can share out information to our stakeholders that they may need to be aware of, whether it's security related for situational awareness, information on what's happening in events. We also have our DSOC, which is the Downtown Strategic Operations Center, to be able to receive calls from our stakeholders so that they can report matters of a non-urgent issue or concerns that our resources may be able to help them with. It is in a way a small collaboration that the CSB has for the city of St. Louis. Again, we're not trying to take over the CSB, but certainly there are areas that we can respond to more quickly to our stakeholders when they make us aware of what's happening around their respective locations. And towards the end of the slide deck you just received, we have our list of board members and also the subcommittees that service our board and our stakeholders. Alderman Aldridge, that's my presentation. Are we addressing questions at this time, or?
Yes, ma'am. We will take questions or comments from committee members, and I will start in order of seniority. Vice Chair Clark Hubbard.
No questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for that very thorough presentation. I look forward to going through it, taking a deeper dive later. Thank you for your service and your commitment through the CID.
Thank you very much.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Sanye. Or Alderwoman Sanye.
I do have questions, just curiosity questions. Could you tell us a little bit more about the makeup of your board and like the composition that makes that up? I just saw the last slide and I was just reading through the names and curious.
Absolutely. So one of the efforts we made at the last renewal, which was 2021, was to address, do we have the right asset class makeup for our board representation? And we pursued that in an effort to have residents, small businesses, large businesses represented, as well as schools, libraries, various institutions. And I believe at this point, we, with our new installation from this past summer, we have a terrific mix of board membership that includes leaders of corporations downtown, as well as small business representation, as I said earlier, a longtime resident, and those who have, I would say, great influence and have their ear to the ground so that we can listen to them and understand how we can do better.
My other question was around the various amenities that you all support. About how much a year do all those, because you mentioned various things from pet waste pickup to some greenery supply to additional security protocols. So I'm just curious, budgetarily, how much does all of that come out to on about an annual basis?
Sure. Our budget, our annual budget is now 2.7 million. It's down 23% from what it was before our last renewal. And I can say with confidence that 75 to 85% of our budget is put back into the community for the services that we provide. We have a very small staff, which is now down to maybe 3 administrative staff and approximately 12 clean team members. We have a great support from our vendors, but certainly we want to grow the service and make sure that we are applying it equitably across the downtown community, and that's our next step in the future.
And you mentioned that it's down 23%. Is that due to just less business generation, or do you know where that decrease in budget revenue is from?
We changed our scope of service. So prior to the last renewal, we also did marketing and economic development. And so that 23% reduction was due to those services going to Greater St. Louis, and we are now more focused on field support within our scope.
And specifically for your, I've seen the bikers downtown many times.
Yep.
For police officers, do you know how much that specific line item budget is? And my second question is, has that been a consistent line item budget, or does it change?
It's been consistently increasing, I'll say that. So when I started in 2017, I think the budget that we had for the bike unit at that time was around 60,000, and now we're north of 1.
Thank you. That completes my questions, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you. I really appreciate the presentation, and just I think you said it. It was the focus on the smaller issues, the really hyper local things that you can pay attention to that maybe the larger city government couldn't. And as you also phrased it, supplementing city services but not exceeding. So I really appreciate all the work that your CID does, and really making sure that downtown is a welcoming and nice place to visit and live.
Thank you.
All right. Miss Sarah.
I don't know if this one's working. It doesn't. Is it working? Okay. Thank you again. As everybody else has said, really impressive presentation. It was nice to kind of see what all the scope of the services that you provide. The questions I have relate to data. What kind of data do you keep? Do you maintain? So do you track the work or like the calls that the police make and anything that's CSB related? So do you track that kind of data?
We track that data, but we are working to do a better job of it internally. And so the vendors that we have are public safety vendor. They have a system where we can look at any time in real time and see the accountability of what our dollars are being spent on. And so that data we have, and we're working to make sure that all of our clean team operators, our other vendors have the same metrics. And that was one of the primary reasons we started the Downtown Strategic Operations Center to be able to capture that data, have all the communication systems, as well as any other devices that allow us to make sure they're doing their job.
Community Improvement District.
Is there any plan to make that data public facing so that others can, like maybe a Tableau dashboard or something of that nature, so that others could take a look at that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We are working with our website developers to that it's, number one, easy to understand, more transparent, and that it can be found on our website.
Oh, great. And I'm really happy to hear that. And then the last question I have you done any kind of impact analysis, broadly speaking, that like what kind of economic impact has the CIT activities had on the downtown district? Anything? And then not only economic impact, but also fiscal impact.
We have not done a broad study, but that is a great next step, and we'll take that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Madeline?
I don't have any questions, but just thank you for the work you do on behalf of downtown and the city.
Thank you.
Mr. Will?
No questions as well, but as a downtown resident and downtown office worker, I deeply appreciate you and your team's efforts.
Thank you.
Ms. Ingracia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you, Director McCrary. I'm curious if, from your perspective, if there's anything the city could be doing better in order to provide support for compliance or training or anything else. And if there's anything that you've discovered with state enabling legislation that might be something you wish to see change in the future.
Sure, and I appreciate the question, Alderman, excuse me.
Just Christine.
Yeah, Christine, I can say Christine here. I appreciate the question. I will start with saying that we have great working relationships with a lot of the directors across the board in the city administration, and that has always been the way we are able to move forward with sharing resources, having resolutions to the stakeholder concerns that are brought to our attention. There's always a need for funding of some sort for what we do, certainly because there are areas that our stakeholders may take greater care of their respective footprints. And so there may be days that we don't have to touch that area, but as I said earlier, equitability want to make addressing many concerns. And so I would, at this point, I'd say that if there are grant resources, any particular funding that we can help be more helpful to the city with those resources that they are not able to provide to downtown or within our footprint every day, we certainly would love to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Milberg?
No further questions. Thank you for being here and the great presentation.
Thank you.
And then one more follow-up question from Alderwoman Sanier.
I just had a question because and this is not specific to you, I think a number of the community improvement districts, some of the work that you all have to do is provide services that is actually the city's responsibility to provide to you. And so in your presentation, I was kind of taking note, but I'm just curious on a city end and as we continue to do our work as a board and as a committee, what would you say are the largest city service gaps that you find yourself having to meet?
Sure. Thank you for putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
And I promise I want to know the truth, even if it's harsh, because we can't solve problems if we're not honest about it.
Yeah, I understand that. And we are very much aware of staffing concerns in every city administration. And so we take that into consideration when we make a specific ask. We are a fortunate downtown CID that we have the resources, the amount of funding that we have, and we have some outreach that we can do to make sure that we're addressing it. In terms of city gaps, I would state that we receive more services on law enforcement as well as daily refuse service than probably other areas in the city of St. Louis. And so we are appreciative and grateful for that. I believe that there's always room for improvement. Alderwoman Sanier, and I'll leave it at that. And again, willing to address that question in depth. in the
Thank you.
Only question I have, I recently seen the article of maybe last week of the Rosa cameras that are kind of like out there to deter crime and watch. Is that in partnership with the downtown SID with those cameras?
It is. It's in partnership with the SID. We are working with a leading technology company, international technology company. We identified in working with a local property owner downtown some concerns about loitering, panhandling in their area. And we addressed it with the property owner, indicated that we possibly have a solution that would help keep their areas clear, but also preventing the need to call law enforcement or any other type of authority to engage. And so ROSA is AI-driven. It has talk-down capabilities. It has the ability to recognize if someone is there for a while or longer than the property owner wants. Those different tools are part of this, this device, and we've got a 3-month pilot phase where we're looking at the data and trying to determine if it's something that will for some of our other stakeholders experiencing similar concerns.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Ms. Kelly, for being here. Looking for further collaboration with you as this committee move forward.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to move right along. Next, we're going to have Miss Emily from the Cherokee SID come up. And there's a presentation that was handed out to committee members and being pulled up by the clerk.
Awesome. Thank you, Alderman Aldridge, and everybody on the committee for having us as the Cherokee SID, and also, you know, the stakeholders of SIDS and SB here to share a little bit about the work that we do. I love PowerPoint and the photos we have on Cherokee Street, so most of my kind of presentation here is just to kind of give folks a sense of the work that we do, a little bit of like overview on the nuts and bolts of our community improvement district, the work that we're doing now, and also some points about how we do that work in terms of engaging community and being transparent, reporting, and all that. So you can go to the next slide. It kind of gives an overview of our SID. Our SID is probably one of the newer ones in the kind of cohort that is here today. Founded in 2017 and really kind of got its legs in 2018. It's a political subdivision, so not kind of a 501c3 SID, which is a different situation. It does have that tax assessment, so it's a 1% sales tax and use tax and a 0.9% property tax for our district. We have a board made up of 13 members, and there's a requirement for there to be business owners, property owners, residents, and commercial tenants. That tenant category can be commercial or residential, but a requirement to not be an owner. And there's a requirement for a minimum of 2 of each of those categories to be present on our board at all times. We also have a pretty large ecosystem of committees, 7 different community committees made up of both board members and then folks kind of from our community and beyond, local residents, businesses, fans of Cherokee Street, folks that are skilled in some of these areas that weigh in on our 7 different areas of work, which include arts, beautification, business development, events, marketing, public safety, and a special committee about our park, which I'll touch on a little bit. The last kind of piece of our infrastructure is Cherokee Street Foundation, which is a 501c3 kind of arm or partner of our organization. That entity runs the annual festivals and things like Cinco de Mayo, et cetera, that you see on Cherokee Street. So it's a little bit of a different thing. Next slide shows you the boundaries. So want to give a tip of the hat to SLDC and planning who helped us with the space map, but this is our SID. It's not the full length of Cherokee Street. There's technically an extra or a separate SBD that covers Antique Row. The Community Improvement District spans Cherokee and 14 blocks between Gravois and Indiana, so 1 block east of 13 blocks of the 7th Ward and 1 block of the KRS. Yeah, 8th, yeah, numbers. This is also color-coded, so you can see the pink is commercial or mixed use. The vast majority of our district, especially in that kind of more downtown section, Nebraska to Jefferson, Nebraska to Indiana, really, It's commercial, and then a good mix of like residential and commercial throughout the rest. Orange is privately owned parking lots, and red is city-owned on this. We've been trying to kind of map out our infrastructure and kind of see where the needs are in the capacity. Next kind of goes through our vision on the next slide, which I think is, pretty broad and sunny. But the vision of our community improvement district is, for a Cherokee Street that's full of life, thriving independent businesses in every storefront, arts and events that bring neighbors and visitors together, and an engaged and empowered community at the table to drive decision-making. Wanting Cherokee Street to be safe and welcoming to all, maintaining a rich residents, businesses, and ideas, and never losing its creative do-it-yourself culture, which I think many know Cherokee Street for. When our CID was created, obviously there's a 5-year plan that's within those kind of original documents. Our CID's about 7 or 8 years old, and so on the next slide, you'll see kind of the 3 priority areas that we're really leaning into for our 3-year strategic plan that don't differ from that, but really kind of focus in on 3 overarching themes of supporting the growth and retention of our independent small businesses, creating beautiful, engaging, and vibrant public spaces, and reducing crime, and also improving perceptions of safety, focusing on both actual reduction and the perception there. And the way that we do that, if you kind of jump to the next slide, is a lot about, marketing and collective branding for our small businesses. The vast majority of Cherokee Street small businesses are first-time entrepreneurs, they're owner-operators. Not a lot of real fancy websites or billboard marketing campaigns. So we try our best to both lean into marketing the street overall and then trying to guide folks to Cherokee Street, creating guides for what taco you should get where, or the street's fashion scene, a neighbor guide, holiday guide, patio guide, all the guides. On the next slide, you'll see that one of the other ways that we try to support our district is bringing the horse to water. It's not a district where there's a captive audience for foot traffic, and so events are a big piece of our district. We do that both in terms of direct sponsorships, so events not hosted by our CID, to organizing activations by our CID itself, like Love Bank Park basketball tournament and concert series, and then our partnership with the Cherokee Street Foundation, which hosts, again, those annual festivals. And then one of the other key ways that we support small businesses on the next slide is, leaning into technical assistance and, trying to help businesses, even when the horse is there, that horse won't drive. So we've created this resource recently, which is on our website, cherokeestreet.com/FAQ, which walks a lot of first-time entrepreneurs through the process of how to register your business with the city, the state, the federal government, what does permitting and conditional use hearings look like, how to get letters of support, and also on the next slide, walking them through the resources that our CID offers for small businesses and also resources we're aware of throughout the city. So on the next 2 slides, you'll see kind of a breakdown of that from, other way. There are, one more. Yes. I think we're going backwards somehow. But in there, you'll see it in your packets. There we go. There's information about the resources our CID provides, like exterior camera grants, window repair, our marketing resources, but also resources kind of you'll see on the next slide of other technical assistance organizations throughout the city. Justine Peterson, STL Youth Jobs, who to contact at special events if you need permitting, and so trying to just kind of help inform businesses a little bit better. We also, on the next slide, you'll see that public space improvement's a big piece, similar to the 18-year trajectory of the Clean Team veteran in downtown. We have Frank in the top left corner. Frank's been picking up litter on Cherokee Street for 20 years. He lives on the street as part of our kind of one-person clean team. Do a lot of public art investments, planters, holiday decorations, etc. On the next slide, you'll see that one of the big pieces of public space improvement we've been working on is Love Bank Park, which was an LRA lot and a lot owned by a business association. Kind of random and community members came together in 2015 to try to turn this into a park. And then on the next slide, you'll see that, our CID has kind of taken over that space, completed a redevelopment this year of a new public space on Cherokee Street. So we are the property owner and developer of that project. It's reopened in April. And it's been a really great mix of meeting both our business district and local community. Next slide is just the kind of overview of what that looks like with the basketball court, and yeah, many folks are familiar with this. And then lastly, the last kind of project I just want to touch on is a way that we're addressing. Unlike a lot of different SIDS, we do not have a secondary contract for a number of reasons, largely resources. Our SID is the smallest resourced entity. We have an annual operating budget from our tax revenue about $400,000. And so we've been trying to find other creative ways, especially about adjusting public space to meet that public safety, both perception and impact on crime. And so we have just launched a lighting project that we're kind of in the middle of and have a queue of 31 businesses and properties that will be adding kind of these pedestrian lighting arms onto to create more walkability and ambiance throughout the district, checking a lot of boxes from small business development, public safety, and beautification. The last piece, feel like I've rambled on for a bit, is just kind of how we do that work. We have, when I started, there were board meetings every month, executive committee meetings weekly, meetings of our committees every month, meetings with community every month, and it was kind of a large bar to set for both our community and our engaged constituents. So we've shifted things up to try to engage people in big ways 4 times a year. We have quarterly community meetings with everyone in our community. It's usually 50 to 75 people. There's food, there's drinks, there's Spanish to English translation to try to get broader awareness and broader input on the things that we're working on. What that also looks like is public votes for letters of support. So when a new business is trying to open a new use for a space, or especially in regards to liquor licenses, as much as is possible with the hearing timeline with the city, we try to put those sort of initiatives up to a vote of our community. And by community, we mean folks that are passionate enough to kind of show up to our so those votes are taken up by the community overall versus our board individually. We also deal with board nominations in a different way than most others. Midterm replacements for board members are made by the board internally, but every 2 years, we hold kind of like an open vote and nomination process for anyone in the community that kind of checks those requirement boxes within our district. And in January, we'll be holding kind of an election for those 7 open seats. We then have to kind of confirm that there's still that mix that's needed within our bylaws of at least residents, property owners, businesses, and tenants, and then submit those to the city, both alderman and mayor's office for. So a little bit of a different stretch on that front. Obviously, there's reporting to the city, the register, and folks, Missouri Department of Economic Development, auditor's office. We have a pretty robust website where we post all of our meetings, all of our meeting minutes, all of our budgets, and anything else under the sun, whatever you want to know about our stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of an overview on how we do the stuff.
Thank you. I'll go in list of seniority with committee members. Vice Chair Clark Hubbard.
No questions. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the presentation.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no questions. Just thank you for being here and thank you for your presentation as well.
Cool. Thanks.
Alderwoman Sanye.
I have some questions. Of course, I know these things. First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Tinhouse, for making time for this. I know that we are very, very busy, and I really appreciate you coming to be before us today. As the alderperson who represents the CID, I was just hoping we could give a little information about things that I know, but I want to make sure on the record. You talked about it a little bit, but could you describe the makeup again, and specifically, I think all the roles are important, but I know one of the things that's really important that I know the community likes is the requirement that 2 members are not actually property owners. Could you talk about a little bit how you guys discuss that composition and just your efforts to make sure that it's a really representative board?
Yeah, so yes, there's a requirement that at least 2 members, and these can be business owners or residents, do not own property. The formation of those rules predates me. I came on in this position in 2019, and the work to kind of establish that was done by my predecessor, Ann McCullough, and a number of folks from our board. So my understanding and my belief around the intention there is trying to kind of get a really diverse perspective on the measures that need to take place to ensure that the street continues to be a place that's welcoming, not only just for the folks that own property and kind of meeting their needs, but also the folks that are renters, both from a commercial and a residential standpoint. We've discussed a lot about like how our street can grow economically, and it is one of the fastest growing commercial districts, though small still. But with that comes a lot of concerns about like how displacement happens over time, concerns about like, upkeep and infrastructure of property, and wanting those to also be present with our conversation at the board level.
Thank you. My next question is just the public components. Obviously, one of the things we're talking about today specifically is compliance. So I know you mentioned the public letter of support process, but if you could talk more about like your website where you post your meeting notes and your budget, I would just like to put more of those on records, because I think some of the things you all do are not even required for compliance, but they very much help with maintaining public trust and to make sure that we're consistently in compliance.
Yeah, we launched our website in January of 2020. Kind of a fun time to launch a website. But yeah, it has a lot of information on there about how we do business. And our team is very small, and so like we, try to do our best in keeping all that information up to date. We post meeting minutes typically the couple days after the meeting on our website, with a caveat there saying they have not yet been approved, and if they're unchanged by the next meeting date, then these are the meeting notes of record. We try to include ways of observation, Zoom observation for all of our board meetings, and that information is always on our website. So yeah, our website is pretty robust in terms of having all of the different documentation and also backdating all of that. So we have like zip files of resolutions and past meeting minutes from years prior.
Okay, this is my last question. Love Bank Park, I think that's really worth talking about. Can you talk about that process and how that came into fruition?
Yeah, I mean, Love Bank Park was 2 buildings that fell into disrepair and became 2 vacant lots. One was owned by LRA, and one was owned kind of around the time that this park came into existence by our business association. And there was a hope at that time to really turn it into a park and for us to take ownership of that LRA property, us being the business association. And the alder at the time said no from lack of funding and planning, but the community kind of just did it anyway. And really rallied both community support and infrastructure to see that forward, and was able to kind of work out a deal with LRA over time to make that one parcel. There was a lot of fundraising for many years to be able to really line up the resources to execute a vision that the community wanted, which was for a more robust space. But many of the funding mechanisms that we found were reimbursement only, including a grant that was secured by my predecessor, Ann McCullough, from MSD, that was kind of the largest partner in this project. So it took us a very long time to creating a SID and setting aside resources. Took a very flexible and understanding financial partner in Town and Country Bank that saw value in a non-revenue generating park asset for financing. And yeah, it took a lot of community support and contribution to be able to raise the $1.3 million that was needed to complete this project in April.
Thank you.
Alderman Browning?
Thank you. No questions.
Ms. Sarah?
Thank you. And for that fascinating presentation, I was really struck by all the things that you're doing with I'm assuming a small staff, correct?
Yeah, it's 2 people.
2 people.
It's myself and a colleague who's split between the Events Foundation.
Okay. So then how much of the work then would you say gets done by volunteers? And do you have a volunteer pool? How does the volunteer part work?
We actually don't rely significantly on volunteers. We have community members that definitely step up and help with things, especially in regards to our committees. But we try to pay folks for their time as much as
Okay.
That's in relationship to kind of the events work, but also, yeah, obviously Frank is a paid employee, and yeah, tried to kind of get partners in there and pay local folks within our neighborhood to kind of get that work done.
Okay, thank you. And then just at the same data question, I've been looking at your website, really cool website. But I noticed that the reports that, I mean, I know the Department of Economic Development only requests PDFs, so it's maddening at the state level to try to track anything.
Yep.
Do you track anything locally within your organization, and do you have plans to make that available?
Yeah, so we track I'm assuming it's Department of Economic Development has public reports on tax disbursements that we have access to internally. So we track that information by industry, by block, and do a lot of internal analysis on that. But there's also requirements that that information is not shared publicly. So we track some of that internally. We work closely with the police department, specifically Officer Rosa Rojas, who's been helping us track crime data for both our street and the blocks north and south of it that we provided our community meetings on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis to try to track those like crime trends specifically for our area. Those are unfortunately also in PDF. Most of our kind of data and reporting is a PDF game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Ms. Madeline?
Thank you for your presentation and everything you do for the neighborhood. I was just wondering, you were talking about public safety. What are your main challenges with addressing crime on the street besides lack of resources? Or how are you thinking about public safety and other interventions? And what are the challenges and opportunities there?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging. I mean, for many years, Cherokee Street had 2 beat officers from the police department, kind of community engagement officers that would walk the street and spend more time. Over time, that role has kind of shifted, and there's community engagement officers that are definitely involved on Cherokee Street, but not as much. Over the 5 years that I've been around, we've explored a lot of different options. Camera grants has been one piece of it, and enabling and providing funding to businesses and property owners that exterior security cameras as an important piece of security to like help them with the resources to be able to do that. So that's one piece of it. I think over the past 5 years, we've also explored looking into secondary contracts, but from my perspective, there's a number of challenges and differing perspectives on the efficacy and cost, frankly, of being able to do that, and a number of reasons in which we did not pursue that effort. So really, I think that the primary focus that we are really leaning into right now is transparency. I think folks often think Cherokee Street is a lot more dangerous than it is. And so trying to provide both community and the public with information about like what's actually happening. Crime, specifically property crime, and also violent crime has gone down significantly over the past few years. So trying to be transparent with that. And then also leaning into things that like make the environment feel safer, which is activation and also lighting. So the lighting project that we've been doing is kind of, I think, a big piece of the way we're approaching public.
Thank you.
Mr. Will?
Thank you for your presentation. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the Love Bank Park financing.
Yeah.
Is the SIDS basically assessment revenue the funding source for the?
Yeah, and so yes, there's a lot that went into kind of like trying to make all the dollars work for this project. There was an MSD grant, which was Project Clear was reimbursement based. And so we were able to work with Town and Country Bank to both establish kind of like a bridge loan and long-term financing through essentially the rest of the term of our community improvement district length. So over the next 15 years, we'll be paying off a part of that, and we're able to kind of pay for, they helped us kind of come up with the cash on hand to be able to figure out the project and also bridge the MSD portion, which I think was about
Is there an expectation that because of the park and the programming that can occur in the park, that there's a pickup in tax revenue or there's a pickup in property tax revenue from the park's existence?
That's not the reason we did it, I'll say. And I think, you know, there's been an expectation beyond kind of whether this results in more money for the district, that this is the right thing to do. Better public space, better community serving public space, and something that kind of activates that and can be an economic generator for events and local business, I think, of it. We stopped and started trying to start this project for a long time. We were about to pull the trigger in 2020, but then we're worried that that source of funding and long-term longevity of the street would kind of bottom out during the pandemic. And somewhat shockingly, it decreased a lot less than we anticipated. And so our revenues have grown 84% since pre-pandemic time, which since 2019, between 2019 and 2020, which kind of gave us the strength that we can kind of move forward with this without putting anything in jeopardy, and also hopefully building up that economic base.
That revenue growth, is that driven primarily by sales tax increases or property taxing?
Sales tax.
Sales tax.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director of Operations, Ingracia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you, Director Thenhouse. Just to echo the sentiments about Love Bank Park, I drive that area of Cherokee from Nebraska East every day, at least once a day, getting my kids to and from school, and it's been really amazing to see how that space is utilized at different parts of the day by different folks. I've seen you probably giving tours to people many, many times, so there's definitely an interest. I think it's pretty incredible what that little corner has been able to accomplish for the district. I'm going to ask the same question I asked of Director McCrary, which is, I heard you kind of touch on, and Alderwoman Saunier touch on, like some of the things are obviously working well with the enabling statute that creates the SID. It's allowing you to have like a board that's maybe more diverse and representative of your community. But curious if there's anything that you think could be better in state statute, or that the city could be doing better to help support maybe not just your SID, but others, especially the smaller ones, with compliance and training and support.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like a better and more open line of communication with the city, with SIDS, I think would be a strong. I have been remarkably blessed in my position to have the mentorship not only of Lisa Aki, who is with SLDC, who's been remarkably helpful in kind of getting me up to speed, and then my colleagues here, especially Rachel Witt, who has shown me the ropes on countless occasions of what the reporting requirements are. But without those two people, we'd be really in the dark on what the expectation is. And so I think being able to whether that's with the Board of Aldermen, Mayor's Office, SLDC, being able to find more of a regular chance to check in, and again, not only about reporting. I think myself and a lot of our colleagues are often the eyes and ears on the ground for local economic development in the places that give St. Louis the character that it has. And so being able to just tap into that base about the concerns or opportunities that we see, I think could be of value to this. One really super quick thing on the park piece that you mentioned, and I wanted to underscore, especially from the safety piece, is that with that project for public space, we've been able to institute a number of different, again, kind of public safety through environmental design protocols that have been remarkably successful. I'm almost surprised about how successful. We offer free outlets and free Wi-Fi at the park. When we opened, we had questions about whether there was going to be security that kind of encouraged folks to leave, or how do we make sure folks don't, start inhabiting the space. And we've worked this out still with a staff of 2 and a lot of very helpful board members based on kind of design. So everything's kind of set up on a tiered lighting and timer system. Outlets and Wi-Fi turn off at 9 p.m. So do our kind of big canopy lights, the string lights that are remarkably bright and show that it's a party. Those have been a remarkably effective nudge for folks to kind of go home. It's less appealing to hang out there all night long. And different kind of landscape lighting and canopy lighting stays on, so there's visibility and ambiance still, but different kind of design ways of effectively managing that space have been very helpful.
Director of Policy, Milberg.
Thank you for this presentation. It's been really great to learn all about the great work that you guys are doing. I was really struck by the really intentional approach you guys have to community engagement, and just wanted to hear a little bit more about how recent those efforts are. Has that been something that has, from the start of the SID's existence, has that been something you guys have been doing from the get-go? Is it a newer effort? And what has been some of the benefits that have come forth from that? And what are you hearing right now about what the residents who come to your meetings are saying about what's important to them, what's happening in that neighborhood?
Yeah. Our community engagement efforts definitely go back to the beginning of the SID, and also the Cherokee Station Business Association, which is kind of what our SID was born out of. It's one of the oldest business associations. I think it was started over 100 years ago. But had a reputation already of monthly meetings, broad sectors of the community. And since we've had a SID, there's been this kind of public engagement component, either on a monthly or a quarterly basis. In recent time, we've been trying to fine tune that to be able to make use of everyone's time in an effective way, and also not to make the bar to engagement remarkably high. And I say that mostly in response to like kind of board members and committee relationships. Every committee, all 7 of our committees used to meet on a monthly basis, which was a high administration bar and also a high expectation for our committee members. And so we've been trying to kind of shift that a little bit to being, quarterly, larger combined meetings along kind of the priorities that are in our strategic plan. Yes, and in terms of residents, concerns, I think they've been really great partners to be able to come to the meetings, both to learn a little bit more about new businesses and like ways that they can kind of support the commercial district, but also in staying in touch with them, on their concerns about, some business activity or things going on the street, issues with noise, or, the positives and negatives of having events next to residential areas, and how we can kind of all work together on that. Yes.
No questions for myself. Appreciate you being here and looking forward to continuing to collaborate with you in this committee.
Cool. Thank you all.
Just in honor of time, because there's been so much good, robust conversation, for each SID and SBD that come up, if you can probably take notes of what your question is, so we can make sure there's a public safety hearing at 2, so we can just hear from every SID and SBD, and then at the end, we'll do like a speed round of questions for all the SIDs and SBD. So next, if Ms. Witt can come up from the South Grand SID.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Witt. I'm the Executive Director for the South Grand Community Improvement District. We were the second SID that formed in the city of St. Louis. Downtown was first, we were second. I was lucky enough when I first started, I would attend the staff meetings for the downtown SID. And I got to learn about how their SID was formed, how they work, their administration structure, all the rules. There's a lot of rules and paperwork that we have to submit. So I was very lucky that I was privy to all that when I first started. I also got my master's, my background's in public administration and local government and economic development, so I had classes in grad school about this. So running the SID came a little natural to me, and knowing all the rules and understanding it. And after we formed, there was more buzz about, wow, look at these main streets really improving themselves. So there was more SIDs forming throughout the city. So I took it upon myself to form a coalition of neighborhood business districts to make sure everyone was aware of the processes and the rules and the law that we have submitted to when our ordinance was passed. And sadly, in the city of St. Louis, there's no department, there's no staff person who's designated to oversee SIDs, SBDs, or work with our business associations besides the commercial district managers with SLDC. So that's just something to think about. I mean, we're small and scrappy with the number we have. We don't have the number like New York City or Philadelphia. They have a whole department that oversees us. It'd be nice to have maybe one person as a representative from SLDC or from City Hall to meet with us. Like, I would love for SLDC to take over the coalition, and we can meet quarterly to meet everyone and know what we're doing and making sure everyone's reporting correctly. I've been doing this for so long. We're very transparent on our website. We just updated our website with a new design, new brand logo. We do a 5-year plan, we do an annual report, we do an audit every year. There's so many rules with a SID. Your board of directors can only be within the boundaries of your SID. So it has to be property owners, business owners, or residents within those boundaries. And so I agree, like we want more input from the community, from the neighborhood. So we have a nonprofit arm. It's made up of business owners and residents from the 6 surrounding neighborhoods around South Grand. So we can have input from the community when it comes to marketing and branding, what events, what public art we want to bring to South Grand. And I mentioned we do an annual report. That annual report is not just for the SID, it's for the Cultural Alliance too, our nonprofit arm. And we form a committee of board members from the SID and the Cultural Alliance when we create our 5-year plan. And we have our board meeting tomorrow and our auditors coming to go over the audit. I know they're all so excited for this tomorrow, but after it's done, that's sent to the state auditor's office. We send an audit draft report to the Department of Economic Development, to the Board of Aldermen. You guys get that from us as well. And the registrar's office gets that. Also, when we have board of directors, we send that list. And if the Board of Aldermen has an issue with our list, they let us know, and then we can change who's being nominated when that person's term is up. We have 3-year terms that's staggered with our board. We have 9 board members, how we're structured. And we do a lot. We have a budget around $400,000, and we have almost 20 contractors. I'm a one-person staff that runs both organizations, and so I'm relying on my contractors. They do a really good job. Like, we hire maintenance company to do street sweeping, emptying trash, landscaping, trimming the trees, irrigation system. We own the parking lot directly behind Commerce Bank. Our loan is with IFF, is a nonprofit that gives loans out to nonprofits. We have the Ritz Park that's currently owned by the Treasurer's Office, and we have our loan with them. And when it's paid off, it's ours for $1, how we have it written in the contract. And we're always working on improving that space, improving the parking lot. We're working on wayfinding signs right now to really solidify our new brand. And then also we started an exterior camera grant program as well. And we have cameras up on all the traffic signal poles. We did an MOU with the city of St. Louis, with the police department. They have total access and control. We do not touch them or see them, besides the cameras we have in our parking lot. We are the only SID that contracts directly through the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department for our secondary. Because we're so small, we're 5.5 blocks from just north of Arsenal to Utah Place, near St. Pius Church and Carpenter's Library. So we have one officer 3 days a week, if we can even get an officer 3 days a week, that walks our district. And so our budget line item for security is $40,000 a year, and we're lucky if we even hit that budget item because we can't always get an officer working secondary. And I know a lot of SIDs and SPDs hire private security as well through City's Finest, and they're lucky if they can fill their secondary as well, which I don't have to go into details about, which you guys are very much aware of, the issues we have with that. But we pride ourselves in beautification with the landscaping. We were the first Great Streets initiative to get planning and implementation dollars, and we signed an MOU with the city of St. Louis to maintain everything. From the tree trimming, as I mentioned, the landscaping, the irrigation, the vacuuming of the pervious concrete, all the metal work, if it gets hit by a car, pay for the maintenance and repairs for that. So for a budget of $400,000 a year, with a loan for a parking lot, loan with a pocket park, doing beautification, maintenance, security. We have a facade grant program that we offer to our businesses because, unfortunately, we don't qualify anymore, and a lot of my peers don't qualify for the facade grant program that used to be with SLBC that got moved to the CDA. So that's one thing I would love to see more help and support with our small businesses is facade improvements. These are old historic buildings, and people judge a book by its cover, and not having those dollars to help fix the storefront, because there's always something happening inside, roof problems, heating and air, have to get a new stove, have to get something new, and to worry about painting the front of their building or fixing the rotting wood doesn't become a top priority. But to the customer, that's very important. But to the business owner and property owner, there are so many other issues that they have to take care of that gets neglected sometimes. And that's something would be nice to get more support to our small businesses and our property owners on. 2/3 of our budget comes from the property owners. We are the highest taxed SID, and we do it by square footage from land, first, second, and above, how we were formed, and 1/3 of our budget comes from state sales tax. We're the lowest in that. We only collect 0.5% that we decided on. So that's how our budget's around $400,000 a year. We've taken around $30,000 a year for a nonprofit arm to help pay for our events and the advertising. The coalition is very important, like Emily mentioned earlier. It's something that brings us together. If we're looking for a contractor, going out to bid, it really helps us because a lot of us are a one-person staff or two-person staff. And we have a lot of work and a lot of commitment, but also transparency is stated in our ordinance. When the SID was formed, when the Board of Aldermen approved ours, there's a management plan stated in there for the first 5 years to go over how are you spending your money. So if you pass your SID or your SBD with a very specific plan, you cannot deviate. You have to spend it within those parameters. And that's why I think having someone at City Hall or SLDC to make sure they're overseeing this, because I don't think people are trying to be, haha, I got one over you, I'm going to spend my money on marketing when we didn't have that in our management plan, but now we feel it's important. It's just ignorance, they just don't know. And also if they came in to the job after it was passed and didn't realize this, I just think there's a lot of small nuances that could be guided by the city that we can use to help on. But that's, again, I always try to help my peers anytime I know when there was a new one, like, don't forget, these are the reports you need to send. Don't forget, your management plan is your Bible, follow it, that's what you're allowed to do. So, but also there's other SIDs out there that are a tool for development for projects to be done in the city. And some are used so well for a SID project, and some, you scratch your head, why was that ever passed as a SID? It's very concerning to know that there's some SBDs and SIDs that have been passed into perpetuity. And that, I feel that's a little red flag that, that nothing should be passed into perpetuity. And then also, one more thing. But this, just the structure, you got to realize these are your boundaries. This is where your money can be spent, only within your boundaries, and just understanding that structure. And I just think having a representative from the city of St. Louis to help guide these districts, I think we can be more beneficial. And we're here to pay for the things that the city can't afford and to offset that cost. But also sometimes it would be nice to get some leveraging funds to help leverage some projects we're doing that the city can help with, or if you guys are aware of other funding out there that we could apply for. We're a team. We love this city. That's why we're all here today. We want to see the city thrive and be successful, and we want to work with you and work with City Hall and SLDC to make sure we can get more people moving here, living, working, and playing here. That's all our goal, and we just want to show why our city is the best and why people should be investing here. So I didn't prepare a presentation. I was more here today, I felt, to answer any questions you guys have about the statutes, the structure, anything I can answer to help with that. And we do track with our sales tax, like what Emily said, with that. Just working with the city with data and the police department with calls for service and knowing what we need to be doing. But yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know we got more people, so I can.
Are you able to stick around to?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
sit down so other people can talk, but thank you for your time today, and I'm here to help in any way I can.
Thank you, Ms. Witt. All right, next we have the Central West End that will cover kind of the SID and their SBD, with them being a unique one that has two of them. Mr. Jim.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
The committee. So I was unaware until either late yesterday or early today that it was a possibility to bring a PowerPoint presentation. So I am without one. And my impression from the beginning was that I was here to respond to questions. So I don't have a formal presentation to offer. I'm happy to expand on any category of concern or area of interest that any of you may have, or respond to specific questions.
Are you able to just talk about maybe how long the SBD and SID has been around, how both of those functions, maybe board makeup, the role that the SID plays within the community in reporting and tracking being in compliance with state law between the SID and SBD? I know that was a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. One interesting tidbit is that our SBD, so I'm wearing two hats today, chair of our Special Business District and on our SID commission in the Central West End. With respect to the SBD, it's interesting to me that we were the first SBD to be formed in the city. There was enabling legislation that had been passed, I believe it was in the early 90s. I'm a little unclear on the exact year, but approximately the early 90s, there was enabling legislation passed in Jefferson City that made it possible to create an SBD. And Dan McGuire was our alderman at the time. He pointed that out to me in reaction to a situation that had arisen around this time of year, Christmas season, when a man walked into a local shop with a shotgun, and the enraged shop owner insisted we do something. And Dan McGuire tapped me on the shoulder and said, well, here's something you might want to consider. So we created the first SBD in the Central West End North approximately 30 years ago or more. We have operated primarily, I'm not sure I'm being totally responsive, so let me know if I'm not answering your concerns, but we have been concerned primarily from the outset with safety and security measures. That was what got us going in the first place. But over the years, our areas of interest and focus have expanded tremendously, and we now, in addition to undertaking efforts to make our neighborhood more safe and secure, we have, for quite some time now, been underwriting pedestrian scale lighting programs throughout the district incrementally. We started along Euclid. We have now worked our way through the entire district and are in the process of updating, upgrading those pedestrian scale lights throughout the district. We also have undertaken responsibility for the maintenance and replacement of trees in the public right-of-way, mainly in the tree lawns throughout the district. That is a major initiative of ours. We believe that's important. We have been interested in and taken action in the areas of beautification and maintenance of the district for a long time. We did not do that aspect of our work particularly effectively until the SID was created. And so that's another interesting piece, to me at least, of the history of until 12 years or so ago, it was not permitted to have a SID and an SBD coexist in the same turf. But there was, once again, well, actually through Lyda Cruzen's efforts, there was legislation passed that enabled the coexistence of SBDs and CIDs. And for our particular district, that was a major breakthrough. And the reason I say our particular district is that we are largely residential, but we have a substantial commercial district as well. And what the creation of the SID did was create the ability to enact things that we have thought about and talked about and hoped to do for years. Now we could do it more effectively because we have the resources and we have the ability to staff that office. Actually, the executive director of the SID is with me today, Kate Herrer, who's sitting in the back row. So I'm focused on the SBD now. I think probably The main thing that would be important for you to know is that we have no staff. We operate with the lowest possible administrative overhead imaginable, but we have the luxury of working in close collaboration with an entity called the Neighborhood Security Initiative. And that entity was created approximately 15 years ago in response to the recognition that although we had multiple SBDs and eventually CIDs in the general Central West End area, we weren't coordinating very well. There wasn't a good forum, an opportunity for communication and collaboration and sharing of best practices. So we, through the Central West End Association's initiative, an entity called the Neighborhood Security Initiative was created. And the entities that support that umbrella group are many now. There are 9 or 10 participating entities, mostly SBDs and CIDs, but Washington University Medical Center Redevelopment Corporation is also very active and financially supportive of the NSI's work. What that enables us to do is to be more effective in a broader geographic territory in our efforts to address safety and security, or to address, in the case of the SID, marketing efforts, things of that sort. Now, I've gone astray, and I'm not sure how much of your interest I responded to.
Yeah, just two more questions on the SIDs and SBDs, and I'll make sure other committee members get the time to. How much revenue do the SBD and SID bring in, and are there any challenges with you all when it comes to reporting? And is the reporting the same for SBD?
No, I think we are, in terms of the reporting responsibilities, I believe, and I hope it is true, that we are on top of our responsibilities there at every level, reporting to the City Register and to the Board of Aldermen and to the Missouri Ethics Commission, et cetera. I believe, and Mr. Fred Ricks, who is one of the commissioners on our SBD, is our secretary as well, and he is responsible for keeping us on track in that regard. So I believe that we do an appropriate job in that arena.
Okay, and then just last question, annually, how much do the SID and the SBD bring in?
Our annual revenue varies from year to year. It has grown over the years as properties have come off tax abatement, rehabilitated properties have come off tax abatement. So currently, our tax revenue is approximately $800,000. I'm talking about the SBD, $800,000. We have a single payment in lieu of taxes that was negotiated when a major development was being undertaken some time ago, 8 or 10 years ago, and that produces another $70,000, and then we earn interest on our funds when they're deposited.
Okay. Are you able to stick around for questions from committee members?
Certainly, I'll do whatever I can do to accommodate.
And I appreciate you so much, Mr. Jam. Thank you.
All right, so no questions at this point.
We're going to circle back around. Yes. Miss Ann from the Locust Business District, if you can proceed on up.
Hello, all of you. I don't have a presentation. I do have a statement, which I'm going to read. I sent a copy to the chairman, share it with all of you, but there's a lot of technical stuff, so I wanted to make sure that everything was in there. My name is Ann Kitloss. I live in one SBD for 28 years, and I work for another. I know almost all of you from my leadership work in the 28th Ward and now the 9th, but that's not who I'm here to represent, but I want to thank Jim Dwyer for his leadership in the Central West End and getting all of us together to build the community that we live in and love. I am here today as the Executive Director of the Locust Central Business District, known as the LBD. Thank you for inviting me to speak. The LBD encompasses a long swath of the city's central corridor between downtown and Grand Center, from 18th Street all the way to North Compton. Northern border starts at Delmar and 18th and swoops down later to Samuel Shepherd Drive to Compton. Southern border starts at Market and 18th across from Union Station, encompasses the entire new soccer complex, fabulous soccer complex, before shifting north to Olive and continuing across to North Compton. Jefferson Avenue bisects the district, so we are split between Alderman Aldrich's 14th Ward and Alderwoman Key's 11th Ward. It's a large area in the middle of the city that's been relatively dormant for decades and is really unfamiliar to many people. It is, however, home to a collection of gorgeous, manageably sized original brick buildings and nicely diverse set of businesses, residences, nonprofit, religious, educational, direct service, and arts organizations. But our quiet phase is ending. Change is happening fast. I'll talk about that later. But first, I want to provide some background on the LBD's formation, leadership, and charge. Not that this is a contest, but the LBD was established by Ordinance 58728, approved December 23rd, 1982, making it the oldest special business district in the city. The process to get it started was deliberate and inclusive. According to the founding ordinance's preamble, petitions signed by property owners and occupants of the area requesting formation of an SBD were filed with the city. A survey and investigation on the desirability and possibility of forming an SBD, they were conducted, and a written report was filed with the city register. The Board of Aldermen passed a supportive resolution in July 1982 and held a public hearing that October before final approval at the end of the year. The Board of Commissioners is set at 7 members appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. 5 members of the board are required to be owners of real property or their representatives, and 2 are renters in the district. At this time, 2 commissioners, including our chair, are small business owners, 2 are residents, 1 represents Historic Central Baptist Church, and 2 have owned and rented property and been involved in the LBD for decades. We're a political subdivision of the state, funded through a tax on real property, now set at 85 cents per $100 assessed valuation. Our founding ordinance actually provides a very broad authority for funds benefiting property owners and the general public. The published list includes, but is not limited to, security, landscaping and maintenance, lighting, sculpture, minibuses, sidewalk cafes, vehicle restrictions, advertising, decorations, events, and hiring of staff and contractors. There have been a series of amendments approved by the Board of Aldermen over the years relating to tax rates, boundaries, and administration. 2, I believe, are of particular interest today. The first ordinance, 60530, approved in October 1987, listed the LBD's accomplishments to date and substituted the original 5-year renewal requirement with an extension for an indefinite time. Ordinance 70226, approved in March 2016, requires submission of an annual report to the Board of Aldermen by March 1 and an annual budget due by November 1. And our board meets those requirements. Now I'll talk about some operations. The commissioners follow rules, policy, and procedures adopted in 2008, including officers and elections, commissioner duties and responsibilities, procedures for check writing. 2 commissioners are required to sign all checks, meeting and voting, committees, notice and attendance requirements, and policies on conflict of interest, procurement, disbursement, and in regard to minority and women-owned business participation. Budgeted income for 2024 is about $387,000, well below the state's threshold of $1 million necessary for reporting. That fact is acknowledged in documentation submitted to the state annually. An independent financial audit is conducted at least every 2 years. The 2022-2023 audit, recently submitted last month's meeting, identified no areas of concern, which has been the case in institutional memory. The board has no policy on document retention. Therefore, all documents are kept. We have lots of boxes. Our website includes meeting notices and meeting minutes for the last several years, as well as the budget overview and the new strategic plan. We launched a new website this fall and are still transitioning some of the older documents and learning to upload the new information. So as with all websites, it's a bit of a work in progress. The current board meets on the second Wednesday of the month. That's today, 4:30, if you're free. All meetings are open to the public, and advance notice is shared in accordance with Missouri's Sunshine Law. Currently, meetings are hybrid, in person on Zoom. Annual meeting is held to elect officers in February, and at each meeting, attendance and minutes are taken. Each meeting includes approval of minutes, treasurer's report, committee and contractor reports, a report from the executive director, and old and new business. All votes are called and recorded. Honestly, it's pretty dry, though this afternoon we'll have holiday snacks and drinks, if you want to come. Now to what we do. For the past number of years, and still, the commissioners have focused intently on the express needs of area stakeholders: security and beautification. A security company provides supplemental police patrols, and a landscaping company installs and maintains dozens of sidewalk trash and pet waste receptacles and manages weeds, leaves, and loose trash. The board organizes periodic cleanup days and with Operation Brightside and community volunteers, and launched a new matching program for exterior lighting, like a lot of my peer organizations. In addition, the LBD maintains street banners, owns and operates a parking lot on Olive, and as mentioned, hosts an informational website, among other things. But putting pressure on that straightforward, long-time routine, this previously quiet part of the city is suddenly a hotbed of investment and activity. Energizer Park and the MLS campus are in the LBD. New businesses are opening, and major new construction and gorgeous building rehabs are taking place. In downtown West, roughly $1.5 billion in new and redevelopment has been built or proposed in the last 5 years, making the LBD one of the most active construction areas of the city. The $1.7 billion National Geospatial Agency site is less than a mile to the north. Two independent but closely aligned business promotion groups have formed: the Midtown Alley Business Association west of Jefferson and City Commons adjacent to the soccer complex. As for the city's new north-south connections, the 20th Street Greenway extension is inching toward construction, and the plan for the Metrolink Green Line cuts straight through on Jefferson. With all of this happening, the commissioners identified an increasing need for strategic and everyday connections with internal stakeholders, neighboring jurisdictions, the SLMPD, regional business leaders, developers, elected and government officials, media, and others. Someone needed to be focused on and representing the area's interests. So I was hired a year ago to play that role. There really hadn't been anyone in the director role for a number of years. Along with angling for basic infrastructure improvements, which the chairman has heard much about, to support the new investments, I see myself as the LBD's #1 cheerleader and a fierce advocate for bringing the city of St. Louis together. Early on, I conducted a series of stakeholder interviews and group sessions to explore the identity and priorities in the area. From that, a new strategic plan for the LBD was created and approved by the commissioners this fall. The mission is as follows: to create a safe, clean, connected, and vibrant district in the heart of the city for the betterment of the business community and others engaged in the LBD. The LBD's vision is to capitalize on our prime location, physical assets, entrepreneurial and welcoming spirit, and the new game-changing investments in our area to become a thriving, walkable, bikeable, transit-friendly center of life for a diverse mix of people and uses. I've worked closely with our alder people, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and many others to move this forward. There's a lot going on, but I think I've satisfied the specific interests of this committee. But before I finish, I want to make 2 points. Our name says business, and I'm in touch regularly with everyone from independent coffee shop owners to creative agency directors and major property developers, as well as SLDC and GSL. We also believe that our residents, both owners and renters, as well as visitors and nonprofits, which for us include the Salvation Army, the YWCA, Food Outreach, Downtown Children's Center, Vivint Health, Central Baptist Church, KIPP High School, and others, are essential partners in creating and sustaining the vibrancy and diversity of our area. Their ideas and concerns were included in our strategic plan, and they continue to play a central role in our planning and advocacy. Second, I could not be moving forward in so many directions without the mentorship and partnership of the other members of this panel and our peers throughout the city. We are a city of neighborhoods, and we covet our unique identities. We as CID and SBD directors also enjoy sharing ideas and resources, all in an effort to improve our neighborhoods, strengthen the city, and move forward together. I'll be happy to answer questions later. Thank you for this invitation.
Thank you, Ms. Ann. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Don from the St. Louis Hills SBD.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
My name is Don Orff. I'm the Secretary of the St. Louis Hills SBD, and I have with me Patrick Coots, who's the VP of our board and also is the chair of our Safety and Security Committee. We are the newbies on the block. Origins for our SBD came out of discussions in our neighborhood association, the desire for additional security in the neighborhood, and a broader feeling that we could do more for the neighborhood, helping to fund projects and events as well as improvements to the area. Our SBD encompasses an area bordered by River des Peres on the west, Chippewa on the north, Hampton on the east, and Gravois on the south. As we looked at this, the idea of running a kind of quasi-governmental body for a bunch of folks in the neighborhood was daunting. So we looked at various options for assistance well prior to our election, to the election, and landed on Park Central Development as the best potential organization to partner with. So Park Central led us through the formation, working with the city, getting the question on the ballot, and making sure that we were buttoned down in key areas. We also had guidance from Tom Oldenburg, who was our alderman, in getting aldermanic and mayoral approvals to move forward. We went through, once the election was done, we went through an application process for our original board members with our alderman, state representative, and officers from the neighborhood association, ultimately choosing the candidates for the board. One of the things that we promised and delivered on in our first year is we developed a first-of-its-kind cap on the SBD tax. No property owner, either residential or commercial in our SBD, would pay more than $250 annually. We set the maximum dollars per hundred of assessed valuation significantly lower than the statute would allow, and set our first-year number lower than that cap at 35 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. We work closely with the assessor's office and with Park Central to get these numbers established, and are very appreciative of the folks there, especially in the assessor's office. They were terrific to work with. Again, in trying to offer our residents an opportunity for accountability, rather than do a 10-year term for our SBD, we set it at 7. We brought it down a little bit, just so that we didn't go way out. 7 we felt like was enough to get through a couple of rounds with board and to establish ourselves in the neighborhood. In 7 years, if we're not doing the job, then we won't be reestablished. We have a seven-member board of commissioners requiring members from each of 2 different neighborhood organizations, 1 business owner, 2 property renters, and two residents basically at large. We began meeting in September of 23 with our first tax dollars arriving at the end of 23. We revised our first-year budget. About 55% of our budget goes to the security effort. We have monthly board meetings on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and they're held at Buder Library. They're obviously public. We established a website, which is a library of information about the origins of the SBD, all of our documents, contracts, meeting announcements and agenda, and extra neighborhood association, so phone numbers, different things that you can find there. We recently did a refresh of that site, so it's updated and it looks much better. Initially, we have 2 board committees which meet monthly. The Executive Committee, which consists of the 4 officers, and the Safety and Security Committee. After RFP processes, we have contracts with a security provider, which is TCF, legal counsel, and our bank. We're currently seeking bids for an auditor for our first fiscal audit. So we're ending our first year now, so we don't have an auditor, so we're doing that. Our first year accomplishments include nightly security patrols, which are connected to a video system called AwareNet, with around 200 cameras in the neighborhood on houses and buildings. Cameras are installed by residents, linked to a system so that security officers get real-time notifications of potential issues. We've partnered with the city, our alderman, and a private donor to replace the playground in Francis Park. We've contributed towards that. Working with Friends of Wilmore Park and Friends of Francis Park, which are the 2 parks in our district, on various projects to enhance the beauty and safety of each of those parks. We worked with the Neighborhood Association on several of projects and events to, again, enhance our neighborhood and to encourage participation of our residents. So a district-wide newsletter, Easter egg hunt, Christmas tree lighting. We work with South City Investment Corporation, which runs an event called Grub and Groove every year, and we're able to help them out financially this year. I think the major challenge that we've faced in our first year of operation is keeping up public interest and engagement in the SPD, and that's something that we'll be working on going forward. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Don. So now we'll go into questions, almost like speed round dating from the committee members. If you can, keep them limited, but please make sure that that your voice is heard. We're going to start with Ms. Witt from the South Grand. And I'm just going to go down. I don't have any questions to all SBDs and CIDs. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this, and looking forward to more ways we can collaborate, and love the way that you guys work together, but also poke fun at each other as well. So thank you. In order of seniority, Vice Chair Clark Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and thank you all for being here. I'm not even going to attempt to try to do a speed round of questioning. So I'll wait for us to continue, the support and the work that we're going to do. I know firsthand the value that the SBDs bring in the 10th Ward that I've been able to work with and honored to serve. I thank you for your continued service. You're a legend, in this. And then before your legendary work, we know Mr. Dwyer continues to be a legend in the work that he does. So I just thank you all for being here, being available, being open for this conversation. And just know that I continue to support you all through the work that you all do on the ground with each other, and then depend on us to, as you said, be able to support and stand in some gaps. Thank you. And I think you left your glasses up here. Mr. Dwyer, are these your glasses? Okay.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Are these yours?
Great, Chairman Aldridge. I just want to say thank you, particularly to Ms. Witt, because the South Grand Citizen part of the 6th Ward. It was great to hear some of the history. And thank you, Ms. Witt, for bringing up the facade issue. I know that's something that we talked about. So I think it's good that you brought it to the attention of everybody here on this committee. And I don't have any questions in particular right now. Thank you.
She waved at you, Alderwoman Velasquez. I know you can't see it, but.
Oh, she can see us. Okay. I'm waving at you.
I can see you.
Alderwoman Sanye.
My colleagues, Ms. Witt, or Director Witt, knows that I'm not a quick question girl, so I will not attempt because I'm very in-depth, but I definitely just wanted to thank you. I've gotten to do great work with you. You're very hands-on, and I think you guys do a lot of innovative things that I hope you're able to come back before us and talk a little bit more about some of those things. You know, I'm known to pop up at board meetings and things like that, so I can talk on and on, but I won't for the sake of time. So just thank you for coming, and I hope that you're able to return and that we're able to continue our work in partnership to support the important work you're doing.
My pleasure.
Alderman Browning.
Similar to my colleagues, I just want to say I really appreciate the work that the SPDs and CIDs do in my ward. I think this job would be a lot harder to do without them. They're really on the ground doing that, minute detail kind of work, helping promote the businesses and really benefit the residents that live in the area. I think we focus on security sometimes as one of the things that these SPDs and CIDs do, but security can sometimes just mean pedestrian lighting, or it can mean better sidewalks. It can also really be helpful in throwing events. I think Mr. Dwyer mentioned the neighborhood security initiative. I can't remember if you mentioned or not, but we also have a homeless outreach arm of that neighborhood security initiative that meets people who are in need with, instead of police presence, meeting them with people who build relationships with them and help try to connect them with resources. And so I cannot begin to describe all the different ways that the special taxi districts in the Ninth Ward help make the Ninth Ward a better place, and also help then raise the value of the property and the success of the businesses in that ward so that it can benefit the whole city. So just want to say thank you to Mr. Dwyer. Would be remiss if I didn't mention Kate Haher or Brian Phillips or anybody else who puts a whole bunch of work into making this area and their little area successful. So thank you all.
Ms. Sarah?
Thank you, Rachel.
My pleasure.
One of the things I really want, I'm not going to go into questions either. I think you've answered a lot of them already, but I just want to thank you and acknowledge the requests that you made to us of things that we should probably look into a little bit more specifically about what the city can provide and the resources and support that the city can provide. I think you've put out there some really interesting ideas about support that SLDC can provide. And I really look forward to us being able to work with you to get more of that feedback. I think that's really important. And then the other thing that I was just going to throw out there, I know that in your SID, there's been a lot of focus on environmental improvement. Thank you. And I'm curious then, and this will be something that we can talk about as a committee, how other parts of the city can be engaged, not just SLDC police, but maybe sustainability can also be engaged in that too. Because I think in our desire to become more climate neutral, this is a really important part that the neighborhoods can play that I don't think have been tapped into yet. A really important resource. Thank you.
And then one thing with that, I was able to find a grant, not available till fiscal year 27, so we can replace the pervious concrete with pervious pavers. It's a better product. I know East West Gateway and BPS with the city is very understaffed and overcommitted, so we're kind of on our own with a lot of projects. So I fill them all in on that. But also, I was lucky enough, and I share this with the Director of Sustainability and East West Gateway Council of Governments with Paul Hubman. There's a group in Washington, D.C., the Smart Surface Coalition, and they track all sustainable grants for surfaces. So they all have it. Anything I get updated, I send to them. I believe in transparency. Anything I have, I share with my peers, I share with the city. So anything I get that can help other areas, I agree. It's sad that we are the first Great Streets project and the only Great Streets project that has been completed in the city of St. Louis that has sustainability component. Everything else has been on private property through Project Clear that developers can do, which I'm glad that they are, but it would be nice for more of our public right-of-way to do it. And one of the reasons, I'll just finish with this, why we got the first Great Streets project, because we were a SID. We had the money to maintain the streetscape. And the Great Streets initiative was within the boundaries of our district and only within our district. And that's why I'm glad with Grand Boulevard being repaved. I am thrilled. It hasn't been paved in 24 years. And how the road diet's going to continue, because we kind of did that in a vacuum when we did our road diet. And so people are coming fast within our short little 6 blocks. Mentally, they do not have it to slow down. And that's why I think we have so many crashes and problems. I mean, especially during COVID, how many 3 traffic signal poles were taken out, 6 light poles. It was ridiculous how bad it was. And we did everything right, but also I just think people are driving faster and don't have that mental point to slow down within our 6 blocks. So with the improvements, I'm so happy to see for next year. It's going to be miserable for everyone, but also very exciting that it's happening. So I'm hoping I can be an advocate or a resource on anything. And again, anything I find, I will share with everyone. But thank you for bringing that up. It's one of my passions too.
Ms. Madeline?
Hey, thanks so much for being here, Rachel. Yes, just want to echo what everyone said. You all do such important work, and seeing what you've been able to do with the South Grand Sid and the community you've built over there it's really amazing to see. Thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit about the coalition. How did that form, and why did that form, and what do you spend most of your time as a coalition leader doing? What's kind of the agenda there?
So I'm good friends with the former director of community development for Maplewood, and they have an SBD. And we would meet for, drinks and just chat. And we always share resources. And then at that time, the city started getting more bids like Cherokee and then Bevo, and Sular just formed one. And I'm like, there's also just business associations that are just trying to form a SID or trying to figure out what to do. And I'm like, we should create a spreadsheet and start having meetings. So we were meeting quarterly, and we will pick a topic, and different people will host it. Central West End has hosted, Soulard, Cherokee. So we kind of rotate who hosts the location and pick a topic and a speaker. And we kind of had the coalition. It's more than just the city; it's the county, St. Louis County too. So we all share best practices and resources. We have a private Facebook page that we ask questions on to support one another. But a lot of times, like when you're a one-person staff, who do you have to bounce off ideas when your board members are really busy? So the coalition has been great for me. And one of my aha moment, I'll just tell you this, why I formed it, was years ago. There was a director for the Locust SBD, and they just did this camera. They were the first to do a camera program. And I'm like, how did you do that? Can you give me some advice? This is before we put our cameras up in our district. And she gave me her entire spreadsheet with all the work she did. And I was just dumbfounded. I'm like, that's months of work. She just handed over to me. And I'm like, you know what? We need to start paying it forward and helping one another. And that's how the coalition was formed, was because we got to share best practices and resources, because we're limited with time and money, and we just want to keep the dialogue moving and support. But I'll be honest, if I don't organize the meeting, we don't meet. But the Facebook page has been great, and everyone has the directory. So I know a lot of people on there have been meeting one-on-one with each other too, and sharing best practices and resources and contacts. So it's been great. But I just feel like it needs to find a better home. We tried to do it with Community Builders Network years ago, and it kind of wasn't the right home for it. It kind of got back to me, so that's where we're at. But I just feel SLDC would be the perfect home for the coalition.
Great, thank you so much. And yes, those kinds of sharing practices also make everyone more efficient, right? So it's a win-win. Thanks for your work.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Will?
Hi, Rachel. Thank you for being here. No questions, just comment. Thank you for your leadership, and not just with your SID, but the coalition. And thank you to everyone else that's been here to represent a SID or a CBD for your leadership.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Director of Operations, Ingracia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Special Committee on Special Taxing Districts. I don't have a question specifically for you, Director Witt. I did just want to say I appreciate the fact that you brought up that the city could be doing a much better job at supporting special taxing districts, especially because typically it's not any nefarious intent. It's just lack of understanding, especially for volunteers. So I'm just curious, before we leave, or maybe Mr. Chair afterwards, if the individuals who testified today could just let us know how you think maybe the city could be doing better to support compliance or the work you're doing, or if there's anything at the state level that you think could be changed with enabling statutes. Thanks.
Yeah, also I just want to state, it's not always about money, it's about communication. And we all get busy and in our own vacuum of what we do day to day, that we totally forget, like, oh shoot, maybe we should let these groups know what we're working on. and what role they can play. So I just want to state it's not always about money, it's just about communication. And that's why I feel like, finding a home for this coalition, when we do meet, it's not like, hey, give me some money, I want this and that. It's like, this is what we're working on. Hey, we found this resource, like research for us. Like, hey, there's these other grants out there that you guys can apply for. It's like things like that. So how we can work together instead of being in silos. So that's how I just want to state that for the record. It's more about communication.
Director of Policy, Milberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for this information. Building off of that, my only question is if there is a city out there that you think is doing that very well. I know that you mentioned New York seems to have a model out there. I think that hearing any of that, receiving any of that information, I think would always be very welcome. So thank you.
Yep, my pleasure.
All right, no questions. And just in sake of time, what I will do, and I do appreciate all SIDs and SBDs sticking around and staying, I'll reach out to the committee to see if they have questions that I will send out to each SID and SBD so that we can get that information back. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys being here. We do have a public safety committee at 2, so I know we want to start setting up for that. But to all the SIDs and SBDs, thank you so much for, I think, providing a wealth of knowledge to this committee to hopefully help us move forward. And did we have any public comment, Ms. Ross or Clerk?
No one signed up.
All righty. Acknowledgement of any written testimony?
We have none.
Announcements from any committee member? All members was present. I would like to make a motion that we adjourn the special committee on special taxing districts. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carries.